Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Material World. Today, I'm pleased to say we've got back for the second time Tim McCann, CEO and co-founder of Wealth. How are you, Tim?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, Sam. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Great to have you back on. So just as like a quick refresher for people who are new to the channel or new to Wealth, could you just give us like a quick elevator pitch of what it is that Wealth is doing and obviously what you're solving?
First of all, can I just ask, is the name of this show, is it inspired by Madonna? And are you a massive Madonna fan?
I am secretly, and I do have the outfit, but I won't put that out to millions of people.
We want to see it, Sam. We want to see it.
But this is Madonna wanted to be British, so like this is British Madonna.
I will have to say, actually, current Madonna and what I'm looking at right now, I'd probably head in your direction first, to be fair. No, God, shame. Yeah, so Wealth is a mobile app, also available on the website, but you can basically just go in and have a look around and see if there's any companies that you think you would like to be part of from an investment point of view, so you would like to share the upside of. And if you like one of them, you can, in a few clicks, have invested money and you will share in the upside of that company through Wealth. The way we've built it is, quite unique, very different. This type of opportunity hasn't always been available to a wide sort of range of people, and it's never really been available at the levels that we're doing it. So you can do it from as little as $20, $100, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. So it's really for everyone. Whereas I think before something like Wealth came along, it was really for only a very few amount of people. Two or three people that you might meet in your life have probably invested in private equity, and it would have been for a lot of money, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, and it would have taken them quite a long time. They'd probably be quite sophisticated people, investors, businessmen, who can fill out loads of paperwork and pass all the red tape that needs to be done. So we've found a way to make all of that redundant and allowing essentially everyone in the world to share in the upside of companies that they want to be part of, that they like, that they admire. A good example is my daughter who loves gaming. She's now of the age where she's got disposable income, and instead of just wasting it on whatever stuff that she makeup or buying crap from China, she can actually invest in a company like Discord, which is a company or a product that she uses day in and day out whenever she's gaming. So that it's a new way of investing for sure, and I'd like to think that it gives people the chance to participate in the companies economically that they participate in by using their products. So that's kind of that's what we built Wealth for.
Awesome. And I can't say that I was ever privileged enough to know anyone that was buying in the private markets, but it is awesome that I am now able to do so, especially as someone who's dabbled in investing over the years. So I started on the penny stocks much more side of things, because that was, in my eyes, that was like as close to pre-IPO as I could get, was finding these like really small companies, but obviously they'd already gone public. So from a personal standpoint, I absolutely love it. And one of the things, I know one of like the big issues that you've really kind of gone out your way to tackle is with private markets, how it's you're just stuck in your position. There's no like liquidity you hold. And one of the great things about both the app and the website, of course, is that this is no longer an issue. And so would you just like to explain, like, one, how you tackled that, and two, how it kind of works?
Yeah, I think this is where the technology comes in quite strongly. I'll use a kind of like a parallel thing where my son also, I'll talk about my daughter, my son, he plays a lot of online gaming too, and he spends a lot of money acquiring assets in game. So like, on his what do you call that? Oh, Fortnite, sorry. Lost it for a second. Fortnite. He's a bit of a Fortnite pro, right? But he's got this huge arsenal of weapons and skins and everything that he's acquired over time. But the difficulty is those assets are not transferable, right? So if he wants to try to sell those or get liquid on his assets, he's completely stuck.
he would have to break the law and break the terms and conditions of the platform by going to like a third party site, let's say eBay or something like that. And then there's the trust factor as well. He's got to trust that the person he's buying from is actually going to give him the money, or vice versa, that the money he gets, that he's going to give the assets over. And it's a whole it's just laden with issues, right? So if you take that into what we're talking about here, which is private equity investments, right? Normally, of course, like you say, if you're invested in private equity, you're stuck with it until that becomes liquid. Now, if you're able to somehow use a system where you can transfer the ownership without a trust relationship needing to be developed, and it happens quickly, smoothly, and effortlessly, then you've basically developed a way where users can safely transact and buy and sell from each other, right? That's not new for us in crypto. We've been doing it with NFTs. We've been doing it with our Bored Apes or whatever for years now, right? Like, it's called peer-to-peer marketplace, and it's very kind of easily facilitated by smart contracts and blockchain and stuff like that. But if you try to tell anybody in the real world who doesn't know what crypto is or blockchain is that you can do this, first of all, you've got to explain what a digital asset is. Oh, okay, it's on the blockchain. What's the blockchain? Oh, it's a distributed accounting ledger that's spread across computer networks. Oh, you've lost me. So basically, it's quite hard to introduce this to normies, but we're trying not to have to introduce it in a way, and we're just allowing it to happen on the surface, right? So we're trying to abstract away all of that technical jargon and what we're doing, and we're just allowing a user to basically say, hey, I'm willing to part with my investment position if somebody buys it for X amount, whatever it is, like 50% more than I bought it for. And the way these markets move, that's often quite reasonable, because we've seen, for example, with Anthropic, that if you'd have bought in on our site, even 3 months ago, you were getting in at, somewhere around 200 billion. And now, they've just done around for 970 or 965 billion. So there's a huge upside there. And that's whenever our marketplace, we call it the marketplace, gets a lot of activity and users are reselling their investment positions. Now, underneath that, it's all smart contract based. It's all permissionless. It's all governed by the rules that have been set by the technology that we've built. So essentially, there's no counterparty risk, there's no issues, and it's smooth, and it happens within seconds, and the ownership just transfers. You don't have to go through signing contracts and doing administration and that whole kind of legacy red tape that you might have to go through to buy and sell a normal asset in the real world. So that's really where the technology comes to the fore. And then if it was like, for example, in Fortnite, which I think they should be able to do, because you could just switch that logic on there, and all of a sudden my son could be, rolling in it, because he's got this massive set of assets that he could have, peer-to-peer sold to other people wanting to come into the market. So that's why I made that kind of analogy.
No, and it's a great analogy as well, because, for example, I know my son also plays Fortnite a lot, and his friend came around recently, and I initially played with my son. I don't know when Fortnite started. It must be about 8-9 years ago. So I've got some of the original skins, like, that you just can't get anymore. And he was going ballistic over these, and I think he would have paid me a small fortune had I been able to sell them to him. But you just can't, and I don't play it, so they're just stuck on an account that I'll never use. But that was the beauty, I guess, of getting in early, is I got the early skins are now worth something.
Yeah, they're worth something that you can't actually materialize, though. So that's a pain, right? Which is obviously not the future; it's the past. So I think what we've done is built something which is kind of more advanced and more future-proof in terms of where we're going with ownership, and like having the what do they call it in crypto? The sovereignty, which is really important. It's the individual right, not the right of the company to decide what happens with your assets. It's the right of the individual to decide what happens to their assets. And I think that's really key, because that's, hopefully anyway, the world that we're going to move into.
And it feels like the way things are going, more and more things are becoming tokenized, which brings me kind of ironically onto my next question. So you've mentioned the technology a lot. Like, is any of this possible without like blockchain technology and the ability to tokenize assets and then fractionalize those further? Like, could this have been built any other way with wealth, or is this was this the technology that needed to exist for wealth to exist?
It's a great question. I'm going to say that it probably could have been done, but with extreme limits. What we've done with the technology, I think future-proofs us and future-proofs the model, because it minimizes the trust factor and the centralization factor as well. So let me give you an example. Central exchanges in crypto are, a very viable business model. They don't actually have the tokens, all of the tokens that they have on the exchanges. Let's say if they, somebody holds 800 Bitcoin on Binance, it's not actually 100% certain that Binance would have those 800 Bitcoin, but it would have the necessary collateral, and some exchanges don't, and that's what happened to FTX, massive collapse. But the point is that it's not 100% like what's the word, secure, that all of the assets do exist, right? So you're trusting in the company like Binance to have the assets that they say they do, or that to have the assets that you own, which is odd if you think about it, because you own the assets, but you're not 100% sure that they exist, right? And that's counterintuitive to where I said we're going in the future, which is that you should have the sovereignty to be able to see, and it should be another crypto word, immutable, undeniable, and independently provable that you own that asset, and that the right to do anything with that asset sits with you and your private keys in your wallet, right? So if something was to happen to us as founders or the company, you still have the underlying asset in your wallet, and you can do with it what you like. And we're not telling you what you should and can do. We're just sort of facilitating the infrastructure that allows it to happen, right? Which I think is a big feature, or something that I would personally want to have. I don't use central exchanges very much because of that reason. I want to have control of my assets, and to answer your question, the model for wealth probably could be done without using blockchain, but a lot of the features that are enabled by wealth it would not be possible without using the blockchain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfectly. And also because it wouldn't. The beautiful thing about blockchain and the tokenization, the fractional tokenization we were speaking about, is it does allow for the lower minimums, which you mentioned in the beginning. So could that? I mean, I can't imagine how that would happen without that technology. It would still be, obviously, in the future they might find easier ways than the traditional way of buying pre-IPOs, but whether it could be in such small amounts and kind of allowing such a wide a range of people to be able to partake and invest is, I just don't, partly because I don't see why they would want want to allow it to happen. So I think this is amazing, that the technology is allowed for projects like Wealth to kind of push through and change how things are being done. So
Yeah.
which leads me on to like what, so we're talking a lot about crypto here, obviously, is like what to people who are already familiar with crypto, have been part of the space for a while now, like what about Wealth would attract them? Like if you was to be like, look, this is why you want to download the app, or this is why you want to get involved, what would be your kind of message to people who are already part of the scene?
Yeah, no, good question. It's not actually an abstract question, because I've got a lot of mates in crypto, and I've been in the industry since 2021. So I've seen every single possible side of crypto that exists, right? The good, the bad, and the really, really ugly. Pump and dump, scams. But also, I think mainly what I would say, my one learning from crypto over the period, is that we got carried away with valuations and attaching value to assets which didn't have the right to have an intrinsic value. Essentially, it's all hype driven, And essentially what that allowed was a huge amount of extraction because you didn't actually have to build something that was valuable. All you had to say was you were going to build something that was going to be game changing. And after 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even longer for some people who saw 3 cycles, 4 cycles, they realized that the only thing that actually was game changing was Bitcoin. And then some, Ethereum was a great network, and Solana also a great network, but they're all just networks, right? Bitcoin, store of value, and unit of exchange became very, very powerful as an alternative to gold or dollar or whatever. But apart from that, there wasn't really that much which you could say was intrinsically valuable. And I think now, like, there's only a handful of cryptocurrencies that I think are amazing. I love hype and like massive believer in what they're going to do. And I think, not financial advice, but like, I think you'll see a trend over the next couple of years, which will be overall divestment in the majority of cryptocurrencies, with the survival of several which do have intrinsic value. Now, I keep stressing this point of intrinsic value because if you look outside of the crypto market, there are other things that have intrinsic value. And of course, gold, silver, oil, all of these things, and equities in general, public equities, private equities, these are attached to things which are real in terms of value creation or in terms of just perceived value. So gold has stood the test of time as a unit of exchange and a unit of holding value, for example. And they're all being tokenized now. Like it's just happened in the blink of an eye. In the last 6 months, you can buy and trade gold and silver on nearly every crypto exchange. And why is that interesting or important? It's because long-term holding a position in these assets is probably going to be much more interesting than holding a position in some shitcoin, which only ever was famous because some influencer said, oh, fart coin is funny, let's buy it. And like this shift had to happen, and it is happening right now. It's obvious. I mean, if we look back, we're going to just go like, oh my God, how stupid were we? But what I would say about wealth is, if you're looking towards the future, why not want to have a position in assets which are tied to some of the biggest and best companies in the world? Private equity has become really interesting this year with, the very, very public growth of AI companies, Elon Musk and SpaceX, and the whole futurization of markets, I think, is a valid term, because we're looking at where we're going as a society, and these companies that are taking us there are largely private companies. And I think the ability to be able to have exposure to them through something like wealth is literally game changing. And I say to my crypto friends all the time, like, don't put all of your assets in one bag, but for sure, if you're smart, you want to have a portfolio which has a certain chunk in these types of companies. Like, why wouldn't you? And every smart person I know, every millionaire I know, every very wealthy person I know has a big interest in private equity, because of this idea of future, like, where are we going, and what are the companies that are going to take us there and therefore benefit from that trajectory. So wealth allows you to go along for the ride on the back of those companies, basically. So crypto bros, you can still hold Bitcoin and hype and fartcoin if you want, but if you have made some money in crypto, or if you have liquid assets, I think it's not a bad play. Again, not financial advice, but it's not a bad play to park some of that. And you can do it so easily. Everyone knows how to use blockchain, and just send some USDC to Base and then buy yourself a couple of slices in some of these companies. Like, why wouldn't you want to have those?
Yeah, of course. And just a quick shout out to Useless Coin. That's my favorite of all those coins, just because I love their social media. I think it's brilliant. But I completely agree in terms of diversifying. Like, I've got money in my normal stocks, stock ISA. I've got money in crypto, and now obviously money in the private markets. So I'll be the poor smart one, but I think it's great. I think it's definitely worth diversifying, and I think this idea is definitely growing from what I see on social media as well. And as you said, the private markets, I'm noticing, are being spoken about a lot more recently. I don't know if it's simply down to SpaceX. the AI as a whole, where it kind of leads. I know like the Cerebras just IPO'd recently. SpaceX is within a few weeks, supposedly. We'll wait and see. And obviously Anthropic saying that they're filing, I think it was 2 days ago now. So there seems to be a real huge buzz around it that I've not really noticed before this year. And we've also got a few more that are coming up. Like, so how do you see this momentum? Like, how do you see this year and possibly bleeding into next year going for the private markets and like the eyes on them?
One thing I have learned is, liquidity just flows, right? And it's cyclical, and it's very rare that it'll stay still, because people are always looking for ways to make money and generate returns, and that's just the nature of the world that we've created. So, do I think that private markets will always have this kind of massive attention and everyone will be fighting to get into private markets? Probably not. But do I think it will be an interesting asset class forever? Yes. And do I think it will have other seasons, like summer seasons and bull runs? I absolutely do think that. And not just because technology is always going to, well, mainly actually because technology is always going to be competitive and trying to outpace itself. And it's only a matter of seconds before a new technology company comes with something which is, making everything else obsolete. And then all of a sudden the liquidity is going to flow again to something else. So it's a highly competitive world, obviously, and that's what we love. But then that also creates opportunity. And if you're on the pulse, which I think we are in terms of the private markets, you're going to be able to pick up the next one. Like when Cerebras, that you just mentioned it, when that came onto our platform, I'll be the first to admit I didn't really know what the hell it was. And now everyone in Wall Street, Silicon Valley is saying, oh, you're absolutely stupid if you don't own Cerebras, because AI is kind of not scalable without that type of computer chip. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, it makes sense. So energy companies and everything that's going to support the infrastructure around AI is hugely important. Obviously, this computer chip thing with Cerebras, but it could quickly become obsolete because somebody else can develop a new way to process AI technology, and then it's like, oh shit, the new Cerebras is here and it's undervalued. Let's all pile into that. So that's what I mean about flowing and cycles. I think it's always going to happen. We're probably living in a world now where it's much more fast-paced, and information flows really, really fluidly now through AI. There's essentially nothing that the average person can't have access to in terms of information that a hedge fund or, I mentioned Warren Buffett and these kinds of like professional investment institutions, their edge before was information. Like they knew before everyone else what was going to happen, and their analysis was so deep, and their sort of gaze into the future was so well developed that they had the edge. But now, like my LLM can tell me all that stuff exactly in the same way they'll be using LLMs to tell them stuff, right? So the gap has shrunk, and now I think the platforms to allow the monetization of that need to come into the mainstream. And if you are Cathie Wood or Warren Buffett, you have no problem accessing private equity. If you are Cathie Wood or Warren Buffett, you will be able to sort of pick up on your research through AI that this company is looking very, very hot. But so could anybody, really, because they're using the same bloody LLMs that you are. But what they don't have is the access. Now we've fixed a part of that with wealth. So I think that makes me confident that something like wealth should be, used in the future.
As you said, the combination of now having all the information that they have, but as well as having the access to be able to do what they do, is it changes things for everyone, really, or anyone that wants to partake and get involved. And I do believe that obviously we are going to see a bit more awareness around the private markets this year, just simply to do with how public and how free sharing information is now. There's a lot of eyes on SpaceX, there's a lot of eyes on Anthropic. So I think it will at least make people more curious that maybe weren't about it. So we might, in that kind of regards of things. We just see people take a bit more interest in it, which I think is great. But that also brings me on to, I mean, we've mentioned it once or twice, but we didn't really touch on it. The fact that obviously, since we've last spoken, Wealth has an app now that you are able to use on your phone, much like any trading app, Trading 212, Robinhood, whatever, is now on your phone, and you can do this directly from your phone. So how was that? How was getting that out there? Like, the last month of kind of building towards the release. Like, was there? And what are you most proud of it? Like, I'm sure there was a few hurdles that you obviously had to cross. I mean, how pleased are you with the finished product? Because obviously I use it. It's smooth. I love it. I personally love it. But I'd love to hear kind of your side of things.
Just another day in the office, mate. You know what I mean? We've been doing this for like 5 years now. So I always say to the guys, like, as soon as you get over one hilltop, there's just another sort of incline ahead, and you don't really have time to sit and enjoy the wins. But of course, this was a huge milestone and something we've been wanting to do from day one. I think probably the biggest win and the thing I'm most proud of is actually the fact that it exists on iOS and Android. You can't access it in the UK or the US, but that's just because Android and iOS have very, very strict policies in those two jurisdictions. But the fact that we were successful in actually applying to the app stores and being passed by the app stores because of the product we have and because of the infrastructure that we've put in place around the product, like the company infrastructure, the corporate and all that sort of stuff, and the compliance bits and pieces. That's a huge thing. I'm so proud of that side of it, if I'm honest. And it's probably the bit that doesn't get the most attention as well, because it's boring, a lot of administration, a lot of KYC, a lot of KYB documentation, and just endless back and forth with these app stores. But it's there, and that's cool. And like you said, it puts you in the same sort of category as things like Robinhood, Trading 212, who are the people that we look up to because they've done this already. So it takes us one step closer to that goal. I just wanted to give a shout out to the guys in the ops team who maybe don't get as much of the credit as everyone else who builds this cool technology and stuff. But having said that, I do also think it looks and feels very, very cool as well. And I probably have the blinkers on a bit because I was involved in every single stage of design and iteration. And whenever you are in a process like that, it's very hard to be objective. And you're obviously leaning more towards being critical than proud, because that's what drives perfection, is that you're always looking for what isn't perfect versus what is perfect, and that's just the nature of the process. But whenever you then send it to, like, your wife or your cousins or your friends, and they're like, "Holy crap, this is amazing! I didn't know this is what you've been doing," and they give you all this, like, positive feedback, then you're like, "Wow, okay, cool." You maybe take a moment then to go, we've done well to get this far, at least. So I feel good about that. What else do I feel good about? It's fast, it's smooth. I suppose it wouldn't be fair of me to smile and give credit without also saying that there's still frustrations. I feel very frustrated personally over how to, or the user experience when it comes to using a fiat on-ramp. So if anybody doesn't know what a fiat on-ramp is, it's like if you don't use crypto and you're not able to send from a wallet or an exchange, then you have to buy crypto, and you're buying crypto with real world money. And that involves going through a third party, and then there's all these frictions through KYC. We have to put the documentation in. They do this like face check and passport check and everything. It's not the worst in the world, but I think in this day and age, it should be a lot freaking smoother and easier. And we're working on providing the best experience there. But it's one of the biggest pain points we've experienced with getting onboarding new users who maybe like what we do. They've seen us on TikTok, they've seen us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and they're curious. They want to get involved, but then they're busy people and they're on the bus or whatever, and then oh shit, I need my passport, I don't have it with me or whatever, and then you lose them. So that's super frustrating, I must say. We're aiming for the gold standard of Apple Pay, Google Pay, or Revolut integration or something like that just allows you to do it smoothly. So yeah, we're hard at work trying to fix that.
Awesome. Well, that kind of what I was going to ask. If anything, what would you like to see in app? Obviously, I imagine that is priority number one with Apple Pay and Revolut and everything else. But more of a so we've got that sorted. That works now. What kind of feature would you personally, as a consumer, like to see in app that would just be like, oh, that's really cool. I like that they've added that. That kind of just brings together this experience a bit more.
I'd love thousands of people to tell me, and then I can just, or we can get to building that thing, because that's way more valuable than me telling you. But there's one thing that I'm really looking forward to, which is the ability to be able to switch into on-chain public stocks. So as we know, we focus on private stock, private equity. But now if you take SpaceX, for example, it's going to IPO next week, I think it is. And after whatever lockup, then the SpaceX holders on Wealth will get their money into will get USDC or whatever dispersed into their wallets for that investment. And I think it would be very cool if you just get a pop-up and say, hey, SpaceX has your slice has just been funded with $500 from SpaceX. Would you like to hold it? Would you like to buy SpaceX public stock now? Or would you like to go and look for something else, something else to buy into? I think having those three options is very cool, because a lot of people might want to stay on the ride. They maybe want to be in SpaceX, and then not having to go then and take that money and put it onto another platform to buy tokenized SpaceX, or take a broker account with Trading 212, whatever it is. Just stay on Wealth and get a tokenized public SpaceX instead. I think that would be really cool, and yeah, we're working towards that.
No, I agree. That sounds fantastic. That you did help. That's my suggestion. I think that's brilliant. I'd love to be able to do that, because I am very much someone that's I like to stay for a ride, and often too long. I'm that guy that has a few too many bags that I'm holding, but I think that would be an awesome addition to say, and also like if you get a little badge or something, say, yeah, I was holding SpaceX from day one, or Cerebras or Anthropic or whoever it may be. Yeah, I think that would be really, really cool, and something I would show off.
That's very cool, actually. You could have like on Wordle, you have the amount of days you've played Wordle or whatever. You could say, the amount of days you've held SpaceX or something could be. That's cool. I like that. I like that, Sam.
Yeah, so you can be an OG, SpaceX OG or something.
Yeah, it's
Every
cool.
year
It's
you
cool
hold it.
because at the end of the day, like you want people to also, like, yes, I know it's about growing your wealth and making money, of course, but it's also about like commitment and conviction in these projects or companies. And I think it's a nice way to show that you believed in it more than most or longer than most. It's a flex, I like that.
And it works, I guess, for people that aren't in it. I mean, we're all in it financially, but I mean, that aren't trying to grab what they think is necessarily going to earn the most. Like, some people put money into things they just believe in the most, that like they want to do. Like I believe in Colossal, what Colossal are doing. I really like what they're trying to achieve. So investing in them is partly due to that, rather than me thinking, well, I think this is going to be a major flip for me, at some point. It's much more to do with, no, I want to see you guys succeed. This is amazing. This is my way of, I guess, showing support or being part of the community, where, however you want to paint it. So yeah, that would be really cool, especially if it is for people that's much more of a long-term hold. There's like small updates that keep you invested in that company, because you're not you're not trying to sell it off, and there's only so much instant gratification you can take from watching that price maybe go up once a month, as opposed to, oh look, I've got a badge for this. If I hold it, another 6 months, I'll get this or I'll get that. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
But I think that's a really cool thread, because the ability to kind of be involved in the companies that you believe in, or that are shaping your world. I think that's kind of one of the good news stories that wealth can take forward, right? And I think we should continue to like massage that like way of thinking and way of seeing things, because it makes it a whole lot less extractive and exploitive. We can't change the nature of investing and money and the world, but what we can do is try to bring some more alignment between the general public, the users, and the companies and the products. And rather than just like having this separation where, I develop a good product and then people pay me and then I get rich. It's like, no, I develop a good product, people pay me, but those people that pay me, we grow together. It's a whole lot better system I think we can focus on in the future.
I agree. It's why I often say, like, be a part of the story, or be a part of the journey in my videos, because to me that is a lot of what it is, and it's going to keep my belief in a company a lot longer than just sitting there watching for that money to go up. Because to me that just shows I don't believe in the company necessarily. I believe in that you just earn me some money at some point, which is there's two. I have both belief systems, but I know how to understand them. But I know as traders, there's definitely some that are just in it for the money, and I know people that will only ever put money into companies they believe in, like genuinely want to see succeed, as opposed to like the money to them isn't really the point of doing it.
It's so much sweeter as well, I think, in the end, right? If I just look at like some of the cryptos I've held, for example, if you were a believer in hype from the early stages, or Venice AI is a good example now, like I feel really good about the positions that I took there, because I believed in the product and the people behind it, and therefore I was rewarded. You know what I mean? It's a much more satisfying experience overall than being just like on the inside or one step ahead or whatever. Yeah.
Sometimes it makes me feel like I'm the rug puller by being in a company to just wait to make a certain
of
amount.
course,
Like,
of course. It's not
funny.
satisfying because it's it's a zero sum game. If you're winning, someone else is losing, and like what is the what is the ultimate reason why you get to benefit and not someone else? Is it just because you were quicker on the draw or whatever? Like that's the thing I don't like necessarily about crypto, but it's also, I think, what's good about what's happening in the markets right now in terms of people are much more like tuned in and aware of the extractive dynamics and stuff like that. So hopefully, cream rises to the top.
Awesome. All right. Anyway, guys, that was another superb episode of Material Wealth. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Tim, for coming on. Really appreciate your time. And remember to like, follow, subscribe. And of course, if you haven't already and you're able to, download the app today. Link will be below.
Thanks, Sam.